FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
Now, to kick off our summit this morning, our staff is going to share some insights on farm policy from some of our speakers. The very first one up is Zippy Duvall, president of the American Farm Bureau Federation. He's a poultry, cattle, and hay producer from Georgia. Duvall has been very active in the Farm Bureau organization at every step of the way, county president, chairman of the AFBF Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee, and Georgia Farm Bureau president before coming to the American Farm Bureau Federation. So joining us now to share a few comments from the nation's largest grassroots farm organization is President Zippy Duvall. Please welcome him.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Agri-Pulse, for putting this on. And I'd say good morning to you, good Monday morning to you. And Sarah said that this was an early morning start. I dairied for 30 years. This is a late morning. And it was funny, I had lunch yesterday with one of my college buddies who was one of the few that says, I'll stay out another hour, I'll help you milk in the morning. And he actually did that, but I reminded him the second or third time he come home with me and said that. I came in one morning, and I woke him up, and he jumped up and put his boots on, got ready to run out the door, and I said, where are you going? He says, we got to milk. I says, I'm finished. Let's eat breakfast. So we're not going to have breakfast this morning, but we're proud to be here. Sarah introduced her staff, and I tell you, every morning when I walk across the mall to my office to represent farmers and ranchers across this country, I listen to Agri-Pulse Daybreak. They do a wonderful job, and she introduced them, but didn't give us the opportunity to thank them for the work they do. Let's give them a round of applause for what they're doing. So what a great opportunity for us to discuss something that's so important to our farmers and ranchers, to the consumers across this country, and to the food security of our country and our rural communities. You know, no other time is it more appropriate to do it than right now, because we are seeing some very difficult times in farmland and difficult times in rural America, seeing 50% of our farm income going down, and the biggest drop over the last 4 years that we've seen since the Great Depression. The farm bill that we currently have is not working for certain commodities, but the biggest problem of this farm bill and writing the next farm bill will be resources. The baseline that the CBO has is not enough to actually have a good safety net for the food security of our country, and that's why at American Farm Bureau we're asking for increases in that baseline so that we can build a true farm bill that helps us through the next 4 years after this one starts. You know, over the years we've taken our fair share. In the last farm bill we took $23 billion in cuts, and it was a very different time during that time. We all know that we were in record high prices, and now we're at record low prices, and it's a very different time. So we're looking forward to today's discussion that goes on around the room and on this stage, and hopefully that we can start that process of having those difficult discussions among our farm family and our friends to make sure that we write a good farm bill. I'll end with just a little brief story, and it's not a political story. This is a true story. When I was dairying, it was hard to find something fun to do with your children, because I had to be at the farm all the time, and a lot of time I was working, just didn't have time. Well, they were all little, and by the way, I have one of my children here, Zellie. Zellie, raise your hand. She works for Congressman Allen, Rick Allen, on his ag issues, but she's the youngest of the four. And so I decided I'd get me a team of mules and buy me a wagon to pull them around in. Now, this was back in the 90s, and we all know what was going on in the 90s. And I bought this pair of mules, just beautiful little pair of mules, they're pony mules, and they were red, and their name was Bill and Hillary. Honest truth. So I was new at this, and I'd hitched these mules up, and I was standing in the front yard with them, and my wife was getting ready to put the kids in all the car seats that we had strapped in the wagon, and something called me away, so I tied them off and walked away. I disengaged from those mules. And I heard something when I looked back. Bill and Hillary was going across the field, and they almost had to rub stomachs to get between two trees, and when they did, it tore the wagon all to pieces because the wagon got hung between the two trees. I tell you this story because if we don't engage in this important process that we're going to go through in the next year, then we could have a tragedy like I did with that wagon. We have to stay on the wagon. We have to stay engaged. We have to make sure that the people we represent understand the issues and give us the feedback so that we can prepare the next farm bill that's going to keep our rural communities growing, our farmers and ranchers and their families on the land, and provide a great safety net for the food security of this great country. Because the only country that's strong in this world is the one that can feed themselves and can help feed others. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to the discussion. And thank you again, Sarah, for all y'all's hard work. God bless you.
Thank you, Zippy, for that memorable story, in addition to your comments and for your sponsorship. Next up is our speaker from the National Crop Insurance Services. In his role at NCIS, Tom Zacharias serves on several USDA and industry working groups, mostly focusing on Farm Bill implementation and USDA reinsurance negotiations for crop insurance programs. He's a former professor of agricultural economics at my alma mater, Iowa State, and also Louisiana State University. Has a long history as an authority on crop insurance programs, a vital component of the Farm Bill safety net. Please join me in welcoming Tom Zacharias from NCIS to the stage.
Zippy must have better eyes than I do because he had a little projector and I got a little bigger one. And when you're going with two Z's to start off the lineup, you got to worry about that as well. Well, it's truly an honor and privilege to be here at this wonderful event. Our organization, National Crop Insurance Services, represents each of the companies writing federally regulated crop insurance business in the United States. Sarah mentioned Iowa State, so let me begin with a little background. Before coming to NCIS, I was at Iowa State, and this was shortly after the drought of 1988 and the farm debt crisis of the 1980s. In April of '89, the late and Honorable Kiki de la Garza requested a report from GAO to examine the existing USDA disaster relief programs. In response to his request, GAO published their report in April of '89 entitled Disaster Assistance, Crop Insurance Can Provide Assistance More Effectively Than Other Programs. Much of this report has stood the test of time and forms the basis of the crop insurance system we have today. I believe that a financially stable and fundamentally sound agriculture is fundamental to our economy and to our society, and that a strong and vibrant U.S. agriculture provides benefits to the international economy as well. The role of both state and federally regulated crop insurance is to provide financial stability to the agricultural sector in combination with other farm-level strategies such as sound marketing and good financial planning, in addition to other USDA programs designed to support U.S. agriculture. Since the 1980 Act, when the private sector was first tapped to deliver crop insurance, we have seen federal crop grow from approximately 45 million acres insured in '81 to over 290 million acres today. In terms of financial protection, in '81, crop insurance protected about $6 billion worth of crops. Today, that number is in excess of $100 billion of liability protection. Approximately 80% of insured acres have coverage levels exceeding 75%. These metrics demonstrate the growth and presence of crop insurance in U.S. agriculture today. So what are a few of the defining characteristics of crop insurance? One, it's contractually based. The rules are written down ahead of the game. There are multiple levels of cost sharing. Farmers like Zippy, they pay premiums and absorb deductibles before a loss is paid. The insurance companies that I represent absorb significant risk and provide private capital into the market. With the support of the federal government and taxpayers, farmer premiums are affordable and widely available for all. In the parlance, everybody has skin in the game in crop insurance. These are just a few of the characteristics that define the successful public-private partnership. I would like to close on a personal anecdote, as did Zippy, because I know Sarah and Alan are watching the clock and it's time to go. My oldest granddaughter, several years ago, dropped in the back of the car and she looked at me through the rearview mirror and she said, "What is it you do?" And I get that question a lot, quite frankly. That said, about a dozen USDA acronyms just flashed through my brain. RMA, SRA, accuracy, you name it. And then I finally just looked at her and I said, "Well, Anna, we help farmers keep farming." So this simple message is one that both children and adults can understand. I believe everyone here today is genuinely interested in improving agriculture for this generation and the generations to come. That is, we need to help farmers keep farming. We have an enormous task before us, but I believe a manageable one. I would like to thank the membership at NCIS for helping sponsor this event and our board of directors, and express appreciation to Sarah and Alan and their staff for putting on this event. This takes a lot of herding of the kittens, as you well know. Then lastly, I would like to express our appreciation to the congressional champions of crop insurance who have supported our industry over the years, specifically Senators Roberts and Stabenow and Congressman Conaway and Peterson, who I believe may be here today. Lastly, we should all thank the American farmer and ranchers who provide us all a affordable and safe food supply that we so often take for granted. With that, I hope you enjoy today's conference.
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate that. Next up is Galen Lee, the president of the American Sugar Beet Growers Association. So we're happy to have Galen here. He owns and operates a diversified row crop and livestock operation in Idaho. So talking about helping out farmers, we actually have a real farmer here with us. Also a former board member of the American Sugar Beet Growers Association. Lee advocates for the sugar industry on the state and national level. So please join me in welcoming Galen Lee.
Well, good morning, and thank you everyone for being here, and a special thanks to Sarah Wyatt and her team for pulling this event together. As Sarah said, my name is Galen Lee. I'm an Idaho farmer, and currently I'm the president of the American Sugar Beet Growers Association. It is truly an honor to be here today and be part of today's activities and be on stage with farm leaders such as you're going to see all through the day. Today you'll hear about the struggling rural economy and low crop prices. Prices are terrible in sugar country too. In fact, they're lower today than when Jimmy Carter sat in the Oval Office. You'll hear about the need for a strong farm safety net to weather the current storm that we have. Sugar is in the same lifeboat. Our policy, which is designed to operate without any taxpayer cost, is barely keeping many sugar farms afloat right now. You'll hear about the upcoming Farm Bill debate, where agriculture will once again battle farm policy critics. In our case, that's big confectioners hoping to further depress farmers' prices, even though U.S. consumers pay less for sugar than their counterparts around the world. As you listen, I challenge you to keep two questions in the back of your mind. To me, these questions are central to any farm policy discussion. First, is a strong agricultural sector in our nation's interest? Since feeding and clothing citizens is key to national security, the answer clearly is yes. It's why every civilization in history has had a farm policy. And it's why every country in the world invests in the production of food, fiber, feed, and fuel. Second, does agriculture face unique challenges that warrant government investment? Again, the answer is clearly yes. The high cost of farming, the unpredictable nature of agriculture, and the foreign subsidies and dumping we face are unlike any others. I can think of no other small businesses that must borrow so much money every year only to run the risk of financial ruin if a seasonal storm strikes or a foreign government manipulates the markets. I can think of few Main Street stores that are under constant attack from extremists hoping to roll back the efficiencies needed to move forward, for example, technologies like GMOs. I don't know of many other occupations where low-cost, world-class producers, such as we are in sugar, lose out to less efficient, highly subsidized competitors. And I can think of no other industry that is comprised of such a tight-knit patchwork of families who come together to make our national economy hum. Take sugar, for example. While we are smaller than other crops, we still support 142,000 jobs in 22 states, and we still pump $20 billion a year into rural economies. Remember, most sugar companies in America are cooperatives, meaning that they are owned and operated by farmers. So we have a lot on the line. If sugar is not profitable, we lose more than our farms. We lose our businesses, our investments, and our local economies. Unfortunately, it's already happening. After more than a century in cane production, Hawaii stopped producing sugar in December amid low prices. Their market was destroyed by international cheaters like Mexico, which was found guilty of dumping subsidized sugar into the U.S. market, a clear violation of U.S. trade law. Hawaii is not alone. We have young farmers on the market block right now going up for auction for the same reasons. The decisions made in the coming months will carry real consequences for our families and our communities. But I'm confident that we can craft policies to chart a course for success. Today's summit is one of the first steps of that journey. Thanks again for your commitment to be here today. I hope you enjoy today's discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Galen. Next up is a person who's probably not going to need much introduction to any of you, a very familiar face, Chuck Connor, President and CEO of the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives. Chuck was the acting USDA Secretary and Deputy Secretary under the administration for George W. Bush. He's a strong advocate for protecting the business and public policy interests of the America's farmer-owned cooperatives. Please help me in welcoming Chuck Connor.
Well, good morning, and I'd like to join Zippy and Tom and Galen in welcoming you today, thanking you for your participation. Great turnout, exciting to see. Sarah, thank you to you and your team as well. I know that this is a tremendous amount of work to put on, but I really believe this is going to be valuable insight as we take on yet another Farm Bill process, and perhaps the most difficult Farm Bill process that we have engaged in for quite some time. For those of you who do not know the National Council of Farmer Co-ops, we are a national organization representing farmer-owned co-ops in Washington and around the country. Our members do span the countryside. They span commodities and span business functions, ranging from providing feed, seed, and fertilizer to producers, to agricultural credit, to processing and marketing the crops and livestock that our farmers produce. It's a very, very diverse organization. As head of NCFC, sometimes managing that great diversity can be a challenge. But more often than not, I do find that our diversity of interest is our strength, not our weakness. And I believe that that applies more broadly to American agriculture as well. It is important as we head into a Farm Bill process to recognize our diversity, but also recognize our need for a unified voice speaking on behalf of the farmers and ranchers of this country. Agriculture needs to go in this Farm Bill process recognizing that diversity with a unified message. I also believe that if we are able to tap into what I call the grassroots populism that exists around the countryside today, and that populism that was instrumental in the election results last November, we will have a significant Farm Bill and a good Farm Bill. I think we began a new paradigm last November, a paradigm where our rural areas can be motivated. They can be motivated to rise up and to make their voices heard. If agricultural groups, I believe, are successful in uniting themselves and tapping into that rural advocacy, again, then I honestly do not expect non-farm organizations, whether ultra-right or ultra-left, to have much impact on this Farm Bill process. Of course, if we are divided and a little bit indifferent, and I would argue we probably were that in 2014, then these groups will have a void to fill, and they will fill that void, and they will have success in altering significant portions of risk management, crop insurance, farm payments, et cetera. The important point, though, is I believe that we, not they, ultimately control that destiny. History shows that you can have a good farm bill in tough times, in tough budget years. More often than not, that has been the case in the past 30 to 40 years. So I go into this farm bill not pessimistic, but quite optimistic that we can write a good farm bill for these tough economic times. And I look forward to working with each one of you to see that come about. And Sarah, I just think this is a great way to kick off that discussion going forward. So thank you again for hosting us.
As part of kicking off our afternoon session, we're going to hear from two key industry leaders. Joining us first is John Keeling. Many of you know John as CEO of the National Potato Council, but he's here representing the Specialty Crop Coalition, who we've heard a little bit about earlier today. Some of you also know that in addition to working on potatoes, Mr. Keeling has worked on American Farm Bureau issues and the National Food Processors Association. Please welcome John Keeling.
I want to be real quick, but I want to say a little bit about specialty crops, but I don't want to hold the chairman up either. I was struck by the discussion earlier about the linkage between food security and the Farm Bill, and that's a subject that all of us, I think, can talk on. But just for real quick, all the people in the room who know the submarine story, please raise their hands. Not as many as you, not as many as we think. So we've been here a long time, Luther. Anyway, very quickly, the Special Crop Farm Bill Alliance is a group that has been involved with the Farm Bill for a long time, but more formally for the last 3 years, and it's basically your fruit and vegetable growers and horticultural growers in this country. And we like to say we're somewhere between 40% and 100% of all the agriculture in America, because you hear different numbers, but somewhere around 40% is pretty much true. We have been very involved in the Farm Bill in the last 3 years, looking at some programs that we think are valuable for Farm Bill, for especially crop producers, and may also be valuable in long term for others. We've looked at strongly at research, big influence on a big interest in research and expanding research funding for specialty crops. We've looked at mechanisms to expand trade, MAP, and TASC, and those kind of things. We've also looked at expanding APHIS's resources to try to deal with stopping invasive pests and managing them once they get there. So those are the kind of areas that we worked in. We're excited about this Farm Bill. Nutrition is very, very important to the specialty crop group. As you look at what's happening in America and our focus on improving nutrition in terms of good health outcomes, fruits and vegetables really become an important part of all that. And if you look at the Farm Bill context, as you look at fruits and vegetables, we think we have a real ability to be a bridge between traditional agriculture and some of the nutrition groups, and also the nutrition interest on the Hill. So we think we've got a positive influence there. So with that, I thank Sarah for the great program, and I'm glad to be here, and look forward to the chairman's remarks.
Thank you, John. Next up is someone who's got years of experience with the farm credit system. Most recently served as Vice President of Government Affairs at CoBank, but now is the CEO of the Farm Credit Council. Please welcome Todd Van Hoos.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks for hosting this. I'm standing between you and the chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, and frankly, I'm smarter than that. So I'm going to get off of here. I'll just say, look, it's great to be able to be here. We're proud to support this effort. Farm Credit's mission is to support rural communities and agriculture, and frankly, that's gotten a little more difficult the last couple of years. If we've seen some of our people out in the countryside look at 4 and even 5 years of tough prices, we're leaning into this. We're working with them to find good outcomes. We're trying to define success out there in this tough environment. And it's why we need a really strong farm bill. We need a good crop insurance program. We need more trade opportunities, and we need some attention to the infrastructure in our rural communities. And that's why certainly Farm Credit pledges its support to Mr. Conaway's effort and all of your all's efforts to pass a good farm bill. The other thing we're working on, you all may have seen some of this, is a Rebuild Rural Coalition. 200 organizations, farm organizations, rural organizations, along with the Farm Credit System, have banded together to call attention to the deteriorating infrastructure in rural America. We're talking about two different things, though. One, the ag transportation chain all the way from farm gate to port needs a lot of attention. Locks and dams, highways, railroads, all need some support if we're going to keep American agriculture competitive. In addition to that, our rural communities need access to more broadband, clean water for rural families, and a modernized power grid to power our businesses and communities out there. So I hope you'll join us as we work in this Congress to rebuild rural America. Thanks.
We are pleased to welcome another one of our special guests this afternoon. He's Leif Magnuson, the president of Claas Global Sales America, an agricultural machinery manufacturer. And we've been talking a lot about infrastructure, rural development. Our part 6 of our Farm Bill series is focused on the need for more resources and really more champions for rural development. And I'm pleased to introduce someone who is certainly a champion in that very vein. He previously served as chair of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. In his role with Claas, he leads strategic planning and operational direction in 3 sales regions, America, Argentina, and Latin America. Please help me welcome Leif Magnuson.
Good afternoon. So Sarah, thank you so much for putting this on, and also to all the staff at Agri-Pulse. A great event, and I think this is just a tremendous opportunity to start a very important dialogue. I'm here today on behalf of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. We are 950 plus members strong manufacturing, off-road equipment manufacturing companies, whereas about almost half of the members are made up of agricultural equipment manufacturers. About 27% of all the manufacturers is made up of farm equipment makers. And I'm pleased to be here today to help introduce also this afternoon's panel discussion. Ag, or farm equipment makers, we support about 320,000 jobs in the United States and directly employ about 114,000 people. We generated about $40 billion to the U.S. economy, about 102 billion in total, and about direct sales of about 60 billion. So the question you may have is, why are we here today? What are we doing here as the makers of combines and harvesters and tractors? And the reason is that we are tied to the hips when it comes to the viability of and the future of our farmers and ranchers. There are major factors influencing the ag equipment manufacturing, including farm income, commodity prices, export and trade, ethanol production, immigration, and of course the regulatory environment as well. Many of these issues has been discussed at length today and will continue to be an important topic as the 2018 Farm Bill reauthorization takes shape. The next Farm Bill must provide a robust safety net for production agriculture, and one that works for the whole ag community across all sectors. Most of you know that farm policies matter to the health of the broader economy, specifically, but not limited also to us as manufacturers. So AEM and equipment manufacturers look forward to contribute to those conversations with the stakeholders also assembled here today. We hope that the process builds upon the bipartisan tradition of farm bills, and we are able to reach consensus on a final bill that is on time with no extensions. Another topic on deck this afternoon and in this afternoon's panel specifically relates to the next generation farm and what investments we should be making to bring U.S. ag further into the future. One particular investment area AEM and member companies are intensely focused on is rural infrastructure. Infrastructure that involves everything from getting ag products to market to enhancing equipment efficiency and proficiency on the farm, as was also mentioned by Todd Van Hoos earlier today. Just last month in Louisville, AEM were pleased also to host Commissioner Ryan Quarles, who is also going to be with us today on the panel. I briefly chatted with Ryan, or Commissioner Ryan, earlier, and I decided to follow him on Twitter, and now I know, Commissioner, that you are a true farmer, because I did notice that back in 1997 and 2001 you were the tractor pull champion. So congratulations. Seriously, it is future leaders like Commissioner Quarles who understands the link between agriculture and infrastructure and is pushing to make rural infrastructure a priority. And I look forward very much to listening to the panel. According to the 2016 World Economic Forum Competitiveness Index, the US ranks 11th in terms of its infrastructure state. The index lists infrastructure as basic requirements for the maintenance of a country's economy. Workforce demands are changing, job skills are evolving, consumer demands for goods and services are shifting, and efficiency is at a premium when it comes to product delivery. The equipment manufacturing sector understands these demands acutely. And in order for the US industry to adapt and remain competitive in the face of these changes, we must get serious about reclaiming our infrastructure advantage. And this applies to both urban and rural areas. Our infrastructure advantage has historically been a critical component in maintaining our global edge. Think about it. Think about the interstate systems that was finished in the late 70s, early 80s. Think about the water locks in our waterways. Think about our ports that made it possible to put affordable food on people's plates and to generate export income of about $130 billion for US farm production. But that advantage is disappearing. And there has not been any significant upgrade to US infrastructure in recent times. There has not been any significant project initiated by any recent administrations. So it's time to act. It's time to act on highways, on rail, waterways, ports, and it's also mentioned before we need a high-speed broadband connectivity in rural areas in order for our machines and the farmers to operate effectively. So re-establishing the US infrastructure advantage will secure our ability to compete globally across all sectors, strategically position us to adapt to the foreseen and the unforeseen shifts in economic demands. So on behalf of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers and the farm equipment makers, we will be working to ensure that the rural infrastructure is part of this renewed interest and excitement about the future of US infrastructure. And we look forward to working with each and every one of you to make sure that it happens. Again, thank you to Agri-Pulse and for hosting this important event, and I very much look forward to the next panel. Thank you so much.